Asking me to do another video about credit cards and how they can improve their credit score so that they can have a higher score. Obviously, they're looking for something over 750 because they know that if they have a credit score that's lower than 700, they know that they're going to have higher interest rates for whatever they purchase. And nowadays, the main things that we're really focused on when we're talking about credit are cars, insurance costs for your cars, real estate as in buying a house for the first time, and home insurance, because the reality is your credit score affects these things. I remember a number of people have tried to avoid credit, like even people I've known, and I've told them, listen, you can't avoid credit, you have to get it. And some people like Dave Ramsey and Chris Hogan, they try to tell people, oh yeah, credit cards are evil, they're the beast. It's like you shouldn't get a credit card and blah, 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 blah. Thing about it is, in the real world, we need credit. We have to have it. There are some jobs that will refuse to hire you unless your credit score is decent, because as far as they're concerned, you're too much of a liability. It's just like with student loans and college degrees. Some people are, oh yeah, you should avoid college. Ain't shit. You don't need to go to college, taking out all that debt. Well, in my honest opinion, the problem is a lot of people, they go out of state for college, they spend way too much money going to college, and they get a degree that they can't easily get a job in. And because they do that, they end up so deep in debt that the degree is basically worthless, or at least they won't be able to make enough money back quick enough to justify the degree. So the reality is, if you use it right as a tool, it can help you to save more money in the future. And you're like, well, how can I save money using a credit card? The reality is, if you pay back purchases immediately, and when I say immediately, I mean like if I spend some money on a credit card this morning, I'm paying it back tomorrow or as soon as it gets posted to the internet so that I can see it and know that I have to pay it back. Typically, they don't demand that. They want you to pay it back before the end of the month, but I don't even wait. I would prefer to pay it back that very next day. If you're an iPhone owner, obviously AppleCard is something that you want to consider buying. And you don't necessarily have to be an iPhone owner, because you could also have an iPad, which most people have, or you could have an Apple Watch, which most people have. It works better with an iPhone because it allows you to track your packages, your purchases. It allows you to track those things a lot easier if you have the iPhone. But you can also do the same thing on an iPad, and you can do the same thing even just using the computer if you have a Macintosh computer or Apple iMac or whatever. But you don't even need that. You could have a regular PC and you could still track your purchases. So the thing about it is, well, how do you get a high credit score? Well, I would say the first thing you have to have is a job. You shouldn't be applying for credit cards unless you have a job or unless you have some stable income. If you don't have stable income, there's obviously no way you can pay back your bills. Now, if you don't have a job just yet, like if you're a college student and you haven't started working, you can buy or I should say you can apply for a credit card, because you really don't want to buy any credit card that has a annual fee. So you want to avoid those. Annual fee credit cards are for people who seriously use credit cards to the point where they're using them 100% of the time. They're traveling all over the world and they absolutely need the benefits. So I would say, first of all, you should have a job. If you don't have a job, you can still apply for a credit card. But my thing is, it's going to be harder for you to get it, number one, especially now because this coronavirus, the economy has been slowed down to the point where the banks don't trust us anymore and they don't want to extend credit. And they're also cutting back on certain people's credit. If the banks think that you're in a need for cash and they think that there's a possibility that you could take out money on a credit card but default and not pay it back, they don't want to give it to you. So the bottom line is, even if you don't have a job, you can get a credit card, but you shouldn't be using it. Getting a credit card early helps you start building your credit. So the best credit card, the best credit card accounts are the ones that have lasted for a very long time. So if you have a very long time account, like if you have an account that lasted more than 10 years or more than 20 years, and that account has always been in good standing, that helps you to have really good credit, because most banks look at your oldest credit card account. First of all, let's understand, what credit card is before I even look at this, because I'm just going to look at this real quick. And I was kind of reposting an older video that only got like 10,000 views. I thought it should have had more. But first of all, let's understand what a credit card is. Credit card is basically a tool, and the banks have figured out that if they extend people lines of credit, that they can keep you on the hook using interest payments for a very long period of time. If you borrow $1,000 from the bank can use interest payments and possibly late fees if you pay late, and they can get $3,000 back from you. A credit card is supposedly the most profitable product in the entire world. When you really think about it, it's just a piece of plastic that allows you access to just about any product you want. If I want to, I can take a credit card. I can go and buy this entire computer setup, and I just walk in the store and walk out with it, whether or not I could pay for it or not. In the old days, they used to repossess things. Like, they'd come to your house and take that stuff back. They don't do that anymore. Now they just leave you on the hook, and they continue to rack up interest charges and finance charges and late charges. They don't have to repossess anything. They will repossess your car, and they can repossess a house through the process of foreclosure, because the bank still owns your house and the bank can take it back. But for the most part, when you buy little shit like, video games and cell phones and headphones and stuff like that, and sneakers and stuff, when you buy that stuff on a credit card, that stuff's basically yours. They're trying to get rid of that stuff. What they're basically doing is they're outsourcing inflation by getting you to buy products, taking that useless American dollar and sending it over to Asia, the kids that made your sneakers, the kids that made your cell phones. So ultimately, what the government's doing is they're outsourcing inflation. If you don't understand economics, you wouldn't understand what I'm talking about. But understand, those dollars are useless. They're just paper. They're nothing. You're taking dollars and you're purchasing manufactured products, just like this Apple Watch, just like this computer, just like this monitor. These are manufactured products, and I'm giving you paper for them. So somebody might say, well, why the hell do you give me this paper, this useless US dollar? And be like, yeah, well, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to collect, I'm a Chinese person, I'm going to collect all this useless US dollars, then I'm going to come to your country and I'm going to buy your houses, or I'm going to buy your businesses, I'm going to buy your stores. And the next thing you know, you're going to look around and every single store in your neighborhood is going to be owned by me, because you were busy sending all your US dollars over here, which I can't use here in China. But when I come to your country, I'm going to buy up all your shit. And that's just how it works. Now, what about AppleCard? What is AppleCard? Well, AppleCard, so first of all, Apple makes all their stuff right now in Asia, so they're basically using slave labor to manufacture their phones in order to maximize profit. And before you blame Apple for doing it, Samsung does the same shit, because their phones are manufactured in China too. Most Android companies manufacture their phones overseas in Asia because the labor's cheap. Now, that's not a bad thing, because these people are not slaves. These people signed up for a job, and the only other option was prostitution, not even drug dealing, because in those countries, drug dealers are executed. So for the most part, they didn't have many options as far as what the economy was going to give them. So they can either be telemarketers, prostitutes, or they can, if they're lucky and get the chance to go to school, they can be a businessman of some type. But I'm talking about the people on the lower end of the spectrum. Those people need jobs. So ultimately, when you buy these products that, everybody's like, oh yeah, well, it was a slave shop that made them, or a sweatshop. Bottom line is, you're helping these people's economy. They're not showing up at those jobs for their health. They're showing up at those jobs to make that $1 a day, or that $2 a day, or whatever it is. And they're definitely trying to get overtime. So you're actually helping them by buying stuff like this. Apple Card takes advantage of the fact that Apple overcharges on its products in order to make profit. So if it costs them $300 to make a phone, they'll sell it to you for $1,000 and they'll make $700 profit. So they can afford to give just a little bit of that money back. Like, for instance, they're saying, okay, well, if you buy an Apple Card right now, you're going to start with $50. I keep saying buy Apple Card, but okay, if you buy into Apple Card, we're going to give you $50. They can afford to do that. They've got trillions of dollars. Furthermore, the first time you take this card into an Apple store and you buy an iPhone, an Apple Watch, an iPad, whatever, they're going to make that money back. They're not giving you $50. They're handing you $50 and telling you to go spend $1,000 in an Apple store. So they're not losing. There's a reason why their stock is over $360 a share, up from $90. There's a reason why. The reason why is because they have mastered profit. So Apple released this card with Goldman Sachs, and Goldman Sachs, when they released this card, they made it so that you're going to come to them and you're going to get 3% cash back while they're making 30% off of you. They're going to give you 3%, but they're going to make 30%. And they probably raise the prices to make sure that they lose nothing and that 3% always is accounted for. I honestly don't have a problem with that because honestly, I like Apple as a business. I like Apple as a company. I am a shareholder in Apple, so I don't really have a problem with it. But the more profitable they are, the more profitable I am, or my shares are. So, I can't argue with that. There's nothing I can argue with because as a shareholder, that's what I expect them to do. Now, people want to build their credit right now because they had their asses kicked by this coronavirus economy. So they want to build their credit, right? So how do you go about build your credit? Well, first of all, you have to have a job. If you don't have money to pay back loans, then you can't really do much of anything. Furthermore, we want to avoid paying interest entirely. We don't want to pay interest, so that means that every single purchase you make, you have to pay it back right away. This year, I'm going to be probably buying Apple iPhone 12, and I'm going to buy Apple Watch 6. And supposedly right now, if you're using Apple Card, you can get 0% interest for like the next year or something if you're buying a MacBook or something like that. Now, I don't buy that product. I prefer iPhone and I prefer Apple Watch. So if I can get, when it comes time, if they announce that with the new iPhone, with the new Apple Watch, that they're going to, just to make sure that they boost their sales, that if you have Apple Card, you apply for Apple Card, because right now they have a program called Pathway to Apple Card. They're trying to get as many people into this card as possible because they want to make sure that come September or October or whenever they release new products, they want to make sure that everybody has an Apple Card and they're lined up to buy these products, whether you can afford them or not. That they don't care if you can afford it or not. They just want you lined up to buy it. So bottom line is this. Some of you are trying to rebuild your credit. If you apply for an Apple Card and you get rejected, they have this new program called Pathway to Apple Card where they're trying to make it so that if you got rejected, that they can still figure out a way to pull you in. So they make all these wild offers, payments, balances, and interest. Everything's made simple. There's no fees. Again, they don't need fees. They're going to get their fees when you buy your first iPhone. If your iPhone is $400, then you can bet that it only costs them $100 to make it. Or less. They might only cost them $70 to make it. Because you got to remember, the majority of an Apple product is its software. The software cannot be replicated, duplicated, or imitated by anybody else. And that's what sets Apple apart from Android and all their boring stuff that nobody cares about. What people want is they want all the features that they desire, but they want an operating system as simple as Apple. But the problem is you cannot separate the operating system and the hardware. And in that respect, they have a monopoly on their product. Nobody can make their product the way they do. So they have this software which allows you to easily track all your anything you buy, whether it's cup of coffee from Starbucks. And by the way, let me just say this, and I know people are going to get mad at me, but I don't really care. If you're still spending $5 and $7 for a cup of coffee at Starbucks, you deserve to be broke. You hear what I'm saying to you? If you're wasting that kind of money to buy your shitty dragon fruit latte or whatever that, because I went with my friend and I didn't spend any money. I let him spend the money. But that tasted like crap. Now, the most I'll splurge for when it comes to like drinks like that is I'll go to Dunkin' Donuts and maybe I'll buy like one of those matcha teas. But if you're going to Starbucks and you're going there regularly and you're spending $7 and $8 for a cup of coffee, and you're spending like $30 or whatever that is on a daily basis because you're eating all your meals at Starbucks, you deserve to be broke. If you're going to Chick-fil-A and you're eating that dry ass French fry and their inferior chicken sandwich because Popeyes is superior to Chick-fil-A, then you deserve to be broke. Sorry. And furthermore, the Popeyes chicken sandwich is only $3.99, I think. And the Chick-fil-A sandwich is more. So if you're wasting your time and your money buying that garbage, you deserve to be broke. Sorry. I have to say it. I know somebody might complain, but I really don't care. So anyway, daily cash. No points, no gimmicks. Again, they don't have to have gimmicks and they don't have to worry about it, because the second you buy one of these phones, they've already got you. The whole idea is, how do I make this very expensive, in some cases unnecessary product appear to be necessary and less expensive? Apple Card is how they get you to walk into their store with no money in your pocket and still walk out carrying a MacBook, an Apple Watch, and an iPhone. Now, I need my iPhone because my iPhone makes me money on YouTube when I take it on vacation and record videos on my vacations, and then I make money on YouTube. So when you get a $2,000 check from YouTube, but you only paid $1,700 or $1,600 for an iPhone, well, that pretty much paid itself back in the very first month of ownership. And as long as I've repeated that, and I've built I have like 46 or 47 million views at this point, and I'm going to keep on going, and 70,000 subscribers. The bottom line is, this pays for itself. It takes a little time, and then you also got to remember that come April, when tax season comes, I'm going to hand them the receipts for my products, and I'm going to say, yeah, CPA, hey, guess what? I want this as a business tax deduction because I used it for my YouTube job and filed 1099, and you're going to get me the money I spent for this back. See, what people need to understand is, rich people, the really rich people in the world, they don't work. They make money while they sleeping, because, like, for instance, the Koch brothers, I invested in banks, big oil companies, and I invested in, airlines, cruise lines, so forth and so on. Really rich people, they're making money while they sleep. Regular rich people, they have to work, like the actors, the rappers. Those people have to wake up and go to a job. That's when you're just rich. Now, the wealthy people, those are the people, they ain't got to do shit. Like, they wake up and say, should I take a boat cruise today? Or should I get on the helicopter that's in my backyard and fly around, because that's all I feel like doing today. And then I'm going to get back inside and go back to sleep. That's really wealthy. And that's where everybody wants to be, but 99% of us aren't going to make it there. My goal is to make it there, even if I have to take my money out of this country and move to a less expensive country like the Philippines, and I can live wealthy on $1,000 a month and do absolutely nothing but wake up, go to the beach, dry off after I'm finished swimming, go back to my hotel room and go back to sleep, and that's it. Some people say, like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd be like, I just want to be retired. Nobody wants to deal with this bullshit system anymore, or these people. Nobody wants to deal with it. Everybody just wants to retire. I guarantee you that after this coronavirus has kicked everybody's ass, I guarantee you're going to see a record number of retirees, people who are like, yo, just give me my Social Security money and let me get the fuck out of here. And that's what it is. It's like nobody wants to deal with anything anymore. People are sick and tired of being sick and tired. So let me get back. Okay. Apple products give you the 3%. If you take Uber, you're getting 3%. Uber Eats, because they're trying to keep us in our houses and everything. I haven't used Uber Eats. I don't even think I've ever used Uber myself, because I actually have a car service that I don't run. What it is I have guys working with me, and we have partners. And we have a car service where we take people back from LaGuardia and John F. Kennedy Airport or Newark Airport towards Manhattan. So it's a very small and simple car service. We're trying to build it up. We're trying to get some Tesla Model Ys or more Tesla Model X's. And we're trying to build it up over time. I don't really talk about that because I don't want them in the videos and everything, because somebody might say, oh yeah, well, you owe me money because you're talking about me in your video. So I don't even want to get into that. I don't want to show, any of that aspect at all. So I just want to stay away from that. But I'm just letting you know that that's what we do. Uber and Uber Eats, anybody who wants to drive stuff back and forth right now, anybody who has a bike and wants to carry food back and forth, you can make yourself some really good money right now here in the city, because you got all these old people who are stuck in their apartments and they're scared of the coronavirus. So they call up Fresh Direct and you just bring the stuff back and forth. And they're very happy to see you, and they give you tips too. In fact, I was at the restaurant the other day. I was at my favorite Italian restaurant. Some guy slipped this guy $100 tip, and I saw it, and I was like, "Wow, okay, good for you." That's really good that that there's older people who have enough money to burn and that they're willing to help you out, you know, because they know that you're trying to pay your own bills and everything. They slip you $100 tip, because the most that they were going to get out of me was like $10, because the food that I order is only like usually $20, and I don't even get alcohol when I drink. You know, I usually just get a Sprite soda, but that's beside the point. So anyway, every time you use Apple Card, the reason why this is so is because a lot of businesses do not take Apple payments over the near field communication on your phone. If you go to Walmart, for example, they don't take Apple Pay using your phone. However, they do allow you to use your Apple Card. So you're definitely going to need the physical card. So the physical card, I know Samsung, I think they have their own physical card for their Google Pay system. But the bottom line is more places, I believe, take Google Pay than Apple Pay right now, but that's changing slowly. And as you can see, they're trying to add more and more benefits. Now, here's the thing. I haven't used my Apple Card not even once, and the reason why is because my Capital One Venture Card is where I get my frequent flyer miles, because anybody who watched my channel, they know at this point I do not take economy class anymore when I fly, and typically I fly to Asia every single year. I only fly business class. First of all, it's more comfortable. Second of all, they give you all you can drink alcohol. Then they also give you all you can eat. Like they give you like, you know, dessert, any, you can eat round the clock. Like it's like, let's say you go to sleep and you're sleeping when they're serving breakfast. You don't have to eat right then. You can wait and then you can say, yeah, I want my breakfast later. And they just go and get it. And that's it. And it's the best way to fly. I will never fly economy again. And that's the reason why you have to have a credit card, because just in case you want to go on a flight and you need the funds really quickly, you pay now on your card and then you pay it off later. It's like I'm never flying freaking economy ever again. And not only am I going to pay for it with my credit card, but I'm going to rack up the points. And that's why I like Capital One Venture. Apple Card thus far does not have a frequent flyer mile program. Now, in 2020, because of coronavirus, that hasn't been a big deal because, for the most part, Americans can't travel anywhere. Thanks to the inactivity of our government and the poor testing, because Trump doesn't want the numbers rising so that we can actually see that pretty much all of us are infected. He's afraid of us actually doing testing, because if we do the testing, then everybody will know that the infection has spread. But the bottom line is, in my opinion, we're all going to ultimately get coronavirus, but you have a choice. You can either build up your own immunity to it, you can have it and be asymptomatic and never have a problem with it. It just lives with you, symbiotic relationship, or it can kill your ass. He doesn't want us testing. He keeps on complaining. He's like, oh, yeah, why we gotta do so much testing? If you test, the number's gonna go up. Yeah, stupid, that's exactly right. We need to know. It's like if you're an AIDS victim and you're hiding the fact that you have it. It's like, I want to know if we had it, and I want to know who has it, so this way I could avoid their ass. That's how this is. But AIDS is nowhere near as lethal as coronavirus, because even though it's an immunosystem reactor, this coronavirus, this shit not only attacks your immune system, but it kills your ass if you don't build up your own immunity to it. So my thing is, no, asshole, we need to test for it. It's like, for you to be president and say we shouldn't be testing for it, they should impeach your ass just for that. In fact, they should impeach you for allowing the Russians to be murdering our troops and paying people to murder our troops. But for you to try to be hiding the fact that we have a freaking pandemic, you should have been impeached for that. Like, if I was Nancy Pelosi, I don't care if there's 4 months left. I'd have your ass in chains impeached. But you know what? They're not me, so I guess I can't really do it. So anyway, 1% on all purchases where Apple Pay isn't accepted. Okay? So the 1% is when you hear a lot of these see these people on YouTube. I'm not a credit card guru. You already know I'm not one. It's just that I talk about credit. 1% cash back is not much. 3% is definitely better, but 1% is basically not much. However, if you don't pay interest by paying off your bills immediately, 1% can add up over time. 2% is definitely better, but 1% is, it's not that, again, it's not that much. What ultimately will happen if you're using your Apple Card for everything is that you're going to mix and match your purchases. Some of your things will be from Exxon Mobil. First of all, Exxon and Mobil are so expensive that I don't go there. I usually go to BP or I go to BJ's and get their gas because it's cheapest of all. But Exxon and Mobil, those are places I really don't go. As far as I'm concerned, your 3% cash back for Exxon and Mobil is basically being eaten up at the pump by Exxon and Mobil. So I bought Exxon stock, I bought Mobil stock, and that's as far as it goes. I'd rather go to BP or Valero or BJ's. I don't want gas from Exxon and Mobil. That shit it's a ripoff. It's a ripoff because the prices are higher than everybody else all the time. Even if you go to like New Jersey where gas is cheaper, Exxon and Mobil like the highest. It's like I ain't doing that. So anyway, those are the benefits that they have. And it's like, yeah, the card is totally materially different. Yeah, okay, great. They make it out of titanium. This thing weighs, I think, I looked up how much Apple Card weighs. I know it weighs half as much as that really expensive credit card from JP Morgan Chase, the Reserve Black card. It used to be called the Palladium card. So the thing about it is, yeah, the material's okay and everything, but I used to carry that in my wallet. Now so many people have it, it doesn't really matter, so I took it out of my wallet, I leave it in my safe. So, okay, so that's basically the first part. So now let's talk about building credit. Okay, so let's get concrete. Why is it that you want to have such a high credit score? First of all, after 760, it no longer really matters because your credit is excellent. Pristine credit well above 790 into the 800s. It's not going to change that much for you if you go to a car dealership because as long as you're above 750 or 760, most car dealerships are already going to give you the best program that they possibly have. That they don't really tailor cut many programs to people above 800 because for the most part, most of their buyers are typically nowhere near 800, typically. People have their credit damaged for a number of reasons. Divorce, student loans is the big deal. Medical bills is another big problem because of the collections for medical bills. So the reason why you got to have credit as high as possible is because ultimately you want to get the lowest possible interest rates on every single purchase. If you know that the interest rates for a home mortgage are 3%, you want to be able to apply and demand that 3%. If you know that the rates for leasing a car, because right now, because of coronavirus, a lot of businesses are definitely trying to get rid of the cars that they have on the lots. So they're willing to give you 0% financing in some cases for 72, 74 months. And if you don't get that zero, they may be willing to give you 1%, maybe even 2%. But still, they can get you below 3%, far below 3%, because they're desperate to make those sales. Ultimately, that's the reason why you want your credit as low as possible. Furthermore, some businesses will not hire you as a worker unless your credit is excellent or good. You have to be in good standing. They do these credit checks just like they do criminal background checks. And then on top of that, if you have car insurance, life insurance, health insurance, many of them demand a credit check. They always going to ask you for anything basically that's asking you for your social security number. You have to always wonder in the back of your mind whether or not they're going to do a hard or a soft credit inquiry on you to find out whether or not you're a credit-worthy person. Keep in mind, the word mortgage means death pledge. It comes from Old French and it means death pledge. It means that I'm borrowing money from you and I promise you that I'm going to pay this money back. That's basically what mortgage means. Mortgage as in it means dead, mortgage. But I don't speak French. But I'm just saying it comes from French and it means I pledge to give you this money back. The last thing you want is to be a person who borrows money and does not pay it back. When I borrow money, it doesn't matter who I borrow it from. I pay that back as quickly as possible. And I prioritize the highest interest debt first. Like I hear Dave Ramsey's show, a lot of people come in, oh yeah, which bill should I pay first? You want to pay the highest interest debt first because over time, that's the one that's going to cost you the most money. Ultimately, you want to pay them all, but the highest interest is what you want to hit first. What you're seeing right now is a screenshot that I took on my cell phone the moment that I applied for AppleCard and was accepted into it. I should say. I was trying to think of a better word, but there really isn't one. I was accepted into it. And the reason why I wanted to make this video was because after applying for it and getting it and then sitting to wait for the physical card to get here, there were a couple of thoughts that went through my mind about the possible implications that AppleCard would have on my credit, on my future of credit spending, and basically on my wallet. So as you can see, my credit limit was $10,000 with an APR of 12.99%. As far as I know, 12.99% is probably one of the lowest APRs you can get. There is no annual fee, as they are so happy to say. If there had been an annual fee, most people probably wouldn't have gotten it. But the reason why I'm making this video is because I want to talk about some of the implications that you haven't thought of, things that didn't really occur to me till later. First of all, in order to have good credit, there are a couple of things that you have to do. And one of those things is to pay your bills on time. Now, me personally, I haven't had this problem. What I do is, as soon as I make a purchase, that day or the next day, as soon as it gets posted to the actual credit account, you can see it, I pay it off immediately. This way, I never run into the issue of maintaining a rotating balance and causing myself to incur interest and whatever service fees they have and whatnot. See, what you have to understand, when you use a credit card, they are allowed to charge you up to about 28.9% interest. They're not allowed to go over that because of something called a usury law. However, some of that may have changed depending upon what state you're in. So in some states, the usury laws may actually allow them to charge a little bit more. But the thing about it is, even if they are limited to charging you 28.9% interest on whatever you buy, the issue is they can actually charge you way more than that, not illegally, but they can get around a loophole that allows them to charge you finance charges or to hit you with a sudden late payment fee if you are ever late paying the card. Sometimes that late payment fee is $15, but more than often it's going to be $30. And I'm pretty sure you'd feel pretty stupid if you bought something that was only $50, didn't pay on time, and ended up with a late payment of $30. That's ridiculous, because then you'd owe over $80 for something that only costs $50. That's the reason why I always pay immediately. I don't even wait for the bill to get to my house. On-time payments are most important for your credit card, your car, and your house. Any credit that you've signed up for should always be paid on time, including your cell phone bills. A lot of people don't realize that cell phone bills, student loans, and anything else that their social security number is attached to, those things must be paid on time. And the issue is, if you don't pay these things on time, well, what will probably happen is the credit card company or whatever the loan agency is will sue you in court, and they will win. And then the judge will put a garnishment on your wages, and that means you can lose probably 10% of your wages. So if you only make $1,000, you might lose like up to $100 every single paycheck. And they'll take that and put that towards paying whatever court fees were incurred, plus the actual money you owe, until that principal and whatever interest is incurred is paid off. So don't let that be you. Whatever your credit card bill is, whatever your student loan bill is, don't try to ignore it. Pay it on time, immediately. One of the other aspects involved in your credit score that has a moderate impact, it's not such a big deal because they know that time takes time. I mean, I can't turn 30 and I can't turn 50 years old tomorrow. And most of them already understand that you start your credit at 18. But basically, what they're looking for in your credit score is what's the age of your oldest credit account. Keep in mind, what you're basically doing is you're borrowing money to use that money in order to prove to them that you'll pay them back under the agreement. So when you borrow $1,000, they want to make sure that you prove to them that you're paying back that $1,000 in whatever the amount of time is that you promise you're going to pay it back. Now, a credit card allows you basically an unlimited amount of time, and the reason why is because they're going to collect interest off of you until that debt is repaid. The faster you pay that debt back, the less money they're going to earn off of you. They don't actually like that. They want you to take time to pay it back because it really costs them nothing to give you the credit, and you're going to be on the hook for the real money in the real world up until you pay this balance off. So the best you can have is a very, very long-standing credit account. And we're talking basically 5 to 10 years. If you have a good year, if you have 5 years of excellent credit history, never been late, that's perfect. If you have 10 years, that's even more perfect. If you have 20 years, that's excellent. So the bottom line is you have to maintain credit accounts for a long time. Don't close your credit accounts, keep them open, because if you keep them open even after they're paid off, that gives you an account that the bank can look at and say, oh, well, you've had these credit accounts for 10, 15 years. So obviously you can be trusted with credit. The next thing is percent of credit used, and this is pretty obvious. The issue is no matter how much credit you have, you want to be using as little of it as possible. For example, if I have only one credit card to my name and it's $1,000 limit, right? If I go out and spend all $1,000 of that credit, then the amount that I'm using of credit at the time is 100%. Banks don't want to see you using 100%, especially if you're applying for new credit. Say you want to get a car loan or a house. Banks want to see that you're using almost none of your credit. So if you have less than 5%, you're fine. So if I have $1,000 credit limit and I'm using 5% of it at any given time, that's not too big a deal. If I'm using 1%, that's even better. They want to see that you're using as little credit as possible. They want to see that you're making purchases out of pocket and that you're only using credit kind of as a supplement. That helps you build your credit score. It helps more, and I'll talk about this later, if you have more available credit and you're using less of it. So if you have $30,000 or $50,000 and you're only using 2 or 3% at any given time, you're doing great. The next thing is a little bit harder to deal with because when you go to apply for a loan or somebody runs your credit, you've heard people offer you credit. Let's say you go to Best Buy, you want to buy a part for your computer. And they're like, oh, well, if you can't afford it, we can give you the Best Buy card. Or let's say you're in Micro Center, you want to buy a computer part, or you want to buy a desk chair or something. And we can give you a credit card. Or let's say you're in Macy's, you want to buy some furniture. Oh, we can give you the Macy's card. The issue is each and every time these people run your credit, that signals the bank that you're looking to take on more credit. Now, to admit, I lost a couple of points on my credit when I applied for APPLECARD and was approved for APPLECARD. And the reason why is because they do a hard inquiry on your credit, which means that they take a good long look at your credit history. Now, if you're a person who has a very high credit score like me, and you have a long credit history that shows that you're trustworthy, and you own houses like I do, or you own a $70,000 car or something, they don't have to look at your credit that long to figure out, okay, this is a person we can trust. But if you're a person who's brand new and you're a student who just graduated or something, they're going to look at you a little bit closer and they're going to say, well, how many student loans does this kid have? Or is he paying on his student loans? Is he defaulting on his student loans? So hard inquiries hurt your credit score. Soft inquiries, which may be made, if let's say you sign up for a credit monitoring service, they may do one hard inquiry on you, but every now and then they'll do a soft inquiry just to make sure your credit's actually improving. Softer inquiries don't hurt you that much, and they're always going to be done anyway because every now and then the credit bureaus are going to check on you. But bottom line is this: you shouldn't sign up for credit cards left and right just to have a bunch of credit cards. In my opinion, you should have one Visa, one MasterCard, one American Express. Now, because I already had a debit card, then that had the Visa logo on it, which means it's accepted anywhere Visa and MasterCard logos are accepted, because pretty much they're all accepted in the same place. If you have one Visa, one MasterCard, one American Express, you're okay, because that means that you can go to just about anywhere and you'll have credit you can use. The Apple Card is really a Goldman Sachs MasterCard. So if you do manage to get Apple Card, that's a MasterCard. That's the only MasterCard you really need. A Visa and an American Express are the only other things that you might consider getting, especially if you're a world traveler like I am. I like having a credit card for emergency purposes. Let's say if somebody steals my fucking wallet or some shit, or let's say if my bags get lost in transit or whatever, I can take a credit card and I can go shopping to buy the things that I need immediately in an emergency. I always carry a spare credit card as an emergency. But you shouldn't be using these things unless you have a plan to repay it immediately, like I talked about in the very beginning. It's always important to pay it back as quickly as possible, so that this way the banks never get interest off of you. And this way you don't find yourself falling into debt. Don't think of a credit card as a weapon against you to put you in the bonds of slavery like these fuckers who debt shame people on the internet talk about. You have to think about a credit card as a tool. It's a tool that can be used in emergency purposes. Let's say you get into a car accident and you suddenly find yourself needing money and you don't have money. Let's say you don't have access to a bank. Let's say you can't get a debit card to get to the bank right now. Your credit card gives you 30 days to pay the money back. The problem that most people have is that they take it and they buy frivolous shit that they can't afford because they didn't have the money to afford it in the first place. They didn't have the cash money. And they buy stuff and they basically can't pay it back. So the issue is you don't want to be signing up for credit cards left and right. If you get one credit card every, let's say, 5 years, then you'll have an excellent rating in the inquiries section. However, if you're a person who buys a bunch of cars or buys a bunch of houses, because me personally, I had a number of inquiries recently because I bought houses and I bought cars. So because of that, my credit inquiries is always going to be higher than the average person, unless that person goes to the mall and sign up for credit cards left and right. So this is the simple rule. You want as few inquiries on your credit as possible. And that's just it. So you want to treat your credit inquiries, signing up for credit, you want to treat that with caution and care. Directly attached to the number of inquiries made on your credit is the number of new accounts that you've opened in the past 2 years. Now, when we say the number of accounts you've opened, keep in mind some of your inquiries may just be inquiries that did not end up with you actually taking on more credit. Like, I can go right now and I can apply for, a credit card for Walmart. But maybe, let's say they say, well, you know what, you've already got too many credit cards, so we're not going to give you one. So what that'll do is give me one inquiry, but it won't add to the number of accounts that I've opened in the past 2 years. However, let's say I go to the car dealership and I say, hey, I'm interested in that new Toyota Supra. Oh, I'm sorry, I mean Supra. I'm interested in that new Toyota Supra. And, I want a really small car that goes really slow, and I don't mind the possibility of being hit by a Jeep Grand Cherokee at speed and crushing my body, because I like little small bullshit cars to drive around with so I can look cool. So they may do the inquiry, and then they'll say, hey, great news. We can give you a loan straight from the Bank of Toyota in Japan. And I'm like, oh, that sounds great. Oh, yeah, so what color you want your Supra in? And I'd be like, okay, I want blue. And they'd be like, oh, okay, great. We got a blue one right here for you. And then you sign on the dotted line and you drive that piece of shit off the lot. Well, guess what? Not only did you get an inquiry, but now you actually took on more credit. So now that number adds to the number of credit accounts that you've opened in the past 2 years. And again, banks do not want to see you opening a number of credit cards in a very short period of time, because what they think is that you must have fallen on hard times, or you're in an emergency situation in your life, and that you're planning to use those cards. Like, for instance, like there's some people out there who's suicidal. For all we know, they might take a bunch of credit cards, spend up a lot of money, and then go, on a rampage or some shit, like that guy Paddock in that hotel. The banks are always watching you. Credit cards are tracking your behavior. And the whole point of credit is that if you can trust me with $100, you can trust me with $1,000, you can trust me with $100,000, and then you can trust me with $300,000. So what you're basically doing is you're telling the bank, give me money, I will pay it back, and I have a job that'll allow me to pay it back. You can trust me, I'm credit worthy. And it tracks your behavior. Did you pay us back or did you not pay us back? Now, the banks really want you to pay them back, but they want you to do it slowly, because the slower you do it, the more interest they can collect off of you. What they don't want is some asshole like me who shows up with the full payment each and every single time I charge something and give them so much money up front that they never have a chance to earn interest off of me. A client like me is actually bad for business. They want somebody who's going to fuck up every now and then and be late. They can charge you 30, 40, whatever they want as a late payment plus finance charges. I'm not going to let that shit happen. And they know it by now. That's why, like with my American Express card, I barely used it, and they called me up, say, hey, if you don't use this, we're going to close it. So in order to protect my total available credit, what I did was I went out and spent some money on it just so they wouldn't close it. So I bought like a fucking slushie or something like that. And it's just something simple, just to put activity on the card. And then I paid it back almost immediately. But that was only so that they didn't do any damage to my account. Which brings me to AppleCard. AppleCard should not really be called AppleCard. It should really be called Goldman Sachs MasterCard. Goldman Sachs is who does the inquiry on your credit report in order to make sure you're credit worthy, not Apple. It even shows up under Goldman Sachs names. Now, if you know anything about the history of Goldman Sachs, some people will say these people are part of the reason why we had the 2008 financial crisis in the first place. Other people will say they were the masterminds behind the 2008 financial crisis. But conspiracy theories aside, the issue that ultimately everybody needs to think about with AppleCard is, why are you getting it? Now, me personally, I'm getting it just for the novelty of having AppleCard. Now, one of the benefits of getting it is that with this new $10,000 limit, if there's something that I decide that I want to buy and I don't want to use my Capital One Venture card, which I really would prefer to use because of the frequent flyer miles that I'll get back that I will use to upgrade to business class, there will be probably unforeseen rewards that Apple is going to try to get to use to entice people to get Apple Card. But the thing about it is I have a $10,000 limit on my Visa card, and now I have a $10,000 limit on this Apple Card, which boosted up my total available credit by $10,000 when I got the card. So the thing about it is, now that I have that, I have to somehow maintain it, despite the fact I really can't think of any situation where I really would want to use this over my Capital One Venture card. For the very longest, I'd only been using one card in order to reap rewards for my frequent flyer flights, because as you know, I travel the world. Like I go to Southeast Asia and wherever else, like Asia, Africa, Seychelles, whatever. So my thing is, yeah, it's good to have it. But the problem is, what happens if you stop using it and they threaten to take it away? Well, you're going to have to use it eventually. And the reason why is because you don't want them to take it away, because part of your credit score involves maintaining a high credit availability. Now, that's something most people don't talk about. A lot of people are scared of credit cards. They think that they're bad and they think they'll just put you in debt. If you have mental discipline to not go into debt, then you don't have to worry about it. And you can use these things to work your way up to the house that you want, which you won't be able to afford unless you have the cash. People like Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman, they talk a lot of shit about debt, but what they're doing is they're debt shaming people who are already in debt. They're not teaching people how to build their credit, because as far as they're concerned, they don't care about credit. They don't believe in credit. But these people have so much cash money from their radio shows, from their YouTube videos. These people have so much cash money that they can buy basically whatever they want cash. They don't have to use credit. Credit is for the plebeians out there. Credit is for people who don't have access to piles of cash and don't have access to huge wads of money. Like anybody who wants to purchase a new car, they're not walking into a dealership with $30,000 in fucking cash. I can guarantee you that. The average person isn't doing that. The average person is not walking into Century 21 and buying a house cash with $400,000 or $500,000. Not unless you're one of these Chinese businesses or one of these Asian bankers or something coming into America to buy up our property, because America has been buying up all of your manufactured goods and sending worthless US dollars over to your country, and you've been amassing that cash in a closet like Saddam Hussein. The average person isn't doing that. Drug dealers might be walking into these places buying stuff cash and Cadillacs and fucking McLarens and shit. Drug dealers might do something like that. The average person isn't. So bottom line is this: you have to build your credit. Otherwise, you will have nothing. You may be able to save up cash money, but you won't have the things that you probably need to make your life easier. And in an emergency situation where you suddenly need more money than you actually have, you absolutely won't have it. I mean, think about it like this. If your boiler in your house suddenly exploded and you needed to get your hands on $5,000, but you only had $2,000 saved up, what are you going to do? If your roof suddenly collapsed because of shoddy engineering, what are you going to do? If your car suddenly broke down and you need, just to get back and forth to work, what are you going to do? And you've got a $3,000 repair bill for your transmission or some shit. What are you going to do? No, you need credit. I've had friends who tried to buy things with credit and they didn't have any credit at all because they never actually built their credit. And they were offered a new credit account, but the problem is the interest rates were high, and they were worse than if you had bad credit. Having no credit, it is possible to have no credit. I've seen it. You can either have no credit, bad credit, or good credit. You have to build your credit one way or another. Now, I would think that most people who are listening to the sound of my voice are probably college students who signed up for AppleCard, and you're just going around YouTube thinking about what people are saying about AppleCard. For me, AppleCard is just a gimmick for me. I already got a credit card that I prefer to use because it gives me flyer miles. Apple will have to work hard to offer me something better to stop me from using the other card. I don't know what they're going to offer, but one thing I know about Apple is when it comes to locking people into the iPhone ecosystem or the iOS ecosystem with cool stuff, I understand that they know what they're doing. They'll figure something out just to deal with people like me. You cannot get Apple Card for whatever reason, or you cannot get any other credit card, which I honestly think right now is probably the best possible chance you have to get a low limit credit card. There's always the secured credit card, which is usually what they suggest people start out with in order to get their credit moving. Basically, what a secured credit card is, it's a credit card that uses your money as a backup asset in order to make sure that if you spend too much, that they have money on file for you that can be used to back up the money that you spent. So NerdWallet has a breakdown of the best secured credit cards that you can watch. These are ones that, let's say you have shitty credit right now, like if you're below a 600, these are secure credit, and these are specifically for people who can't get a credit card. If you have credit already and you have a credit card, my recommendation is that you do everything you can to repair that credit. Do not settle any balances. Pay your balances off in full, because if you do settlements, that actually hurt you, because over your credit history, the bank's going to look at it and be like, hey, wait a minute, we can't trust this guy. This guy runs up bills and then he asks us to accept less. It's like, we're not doing that. So as you can see, annual fee is $0, but the interest rate is 22.99. You never want to have interest rates this high. But understand something. It doesn't matter what the interest rate is as long as you pay the bill entirely before the end of the month. The interest rate could be 1,000,000%, but it doesn't matter as long as you pay that bill before the end of the month. You should never be spending money that you can't afford to repay before the end of the month. You should never be spending money that you can't afford to pay before the end of the month. So they're saying we got this Discover It secure card. If you have a shitty credit score, 300 to 629. So they're already telling you what they consider to be shit. So if you're in this range right here, yeah, you're probably going to want to get a secured credit card. You want it, but you don't want to use it. They give this card very high ratings. So this is one possibility. They say, hey, if you got shitty credit, call 800-347-0264. So they actually have a phone number right there. That's beautiful. I like the way they laid this out. Then Open Sky. This one's not as perfect, but this one they got a lowest score because it has an annual fee. Like I said, you don't really want to have to pay for an annual fee. You want to try to avoid that. That's why this Discover card actually is better. But hey, listen, some people, they'll be like, oh, you know what? I can afford to pay $35 a year for a credit card. Okay, so this one says, let's say, what if your credit is average? Americans are living above their means and their credit is screwed up. So average means that you're up to a 689. If 689 is average, that already tells you that there's a problem. So 17.39% variable. So obviously the interest rate is lower here because they're offsetting some of that interest rate by charging you this annual fee right here. So basically, as you can see, the worse your credit is, the less options you have, unless you're putting up money. There's a lot of rich people who have shitty credit. You got to understand, even though they have cash money, they may have poor credit because, for stupid reasons. It might have been a divorce, and that's it. It's like they have a number of other cards right here. And if you go to nerdwallet.com, they actually tell you some other picks. But Capital One also has a secured MasterCard, but they're charging you, what is this? It allows some qualifying applicants to get a 200 credit line with a deposit of $49 or $99. So they want $100 from you up front. Capital One's my bank. So, that if I had shit credit, that's what I'd get. There's also Citi, who has a secured MasterCard. Pretty much most banks have some kind of secured card. The bottom line is they know that you're going to be out there spending money. They don't want to take a risk on you, but they do want to capture some of that spending that you're going to be doing. So ultimately, everybody is going to end up having some type of secured card of some type. And then they have alternatives to secured credit cards. So they have prepaid debit cards. I don't like debit cards anymore because debit cards give you nothing. When I was coming out of college and credit was tightened, I stopped using credit cards. I started using debit cards. But back then, I was getting rewards for the debit card. When the banks decided that too many people had switched to debit cards to avoid fees, what they did was they said, okay, we're not going to give you any more rewards on debit cards. We're going to only put rewards on credit cards. And this way we have a better chance to rip you off if you're ever late on a payment, or we can charge you finance charges and we can get you that way. So the banks are never in this to lose money. The banks are determined to make their money, and you're going to pay them one way or another, and they'll get you. And there's almost nothing you can do because there's no other place you can keep your money except for a safe in your house or under the mattress. Problem is that's not safe, and people lose a lot of money that way. So they have special loans for people who are trying to build their credit, called credit builder loans. Then there's also personal loans, and I've noticed my credit union has been sending me a lot of emails asking me whether or not I want a personal loan, but I have enough cash, especially after I sold my Tesla stock. I have enough cash where I don't need no $25,000 loan from you, especially considering you're not just handing me money. You want this money at a high % interest. I'm not doing it. So, those are just options for people who are trying to build their credit. Be wary of these services and scams on the internet who are like, oh yeah, well, you know what, if you come to us, we'll help you build your credit. Usually what they really want to do is they want to find out how much money you're making a month, and they want to reserve that money in order for them to get that money from you plus fees. You can rebuild your credit yourself. The problem is you need to understand how does credit work. Rebuilding your credit yourself may take 4 years. It might even take 7. But the bottom line is you have to have a job. You have to make all payments on time for a very long time, a couple of years. You cannot willy-nilly ask for credit and apply for credit. You have to, if you want new credit cards in order to build your credit availability, I would say that once every 3 years, you can apply for 2 new credit cards. The problem is if you don't use those credit cards, they're going to end up getting cut off. I had a Sears card, for instance, and as Sears started to go bankrupt, Sears cut the card off. So that reduced my available credit score, and that knocks your credit score down maybe 1 or 2 points or whatever. The best thing you can be doing is building your credit with an individual bank. And that's one of the reasons why buying real estate is important. My Wells Fargo mortgage lets them know that because I'm such a great customer, that I can have my credit score with Wells Fargo on their files. And they know that I have the asset because I'm sitting in the house right now. So real estate is really the best possible thing that you can have to not only have credit worthiness, but to make sure your credit is stable, because you always have that asset. If the banks know that you have a house and they can kick your ass out of it and they can take that house back, they know that if you're borrowing $4,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 or even $30,000 from them, they know that they have you on the hook for that money and you can't so easily disappear and run. If all else fails, they can take it right out of your home equity. If all else fails, and you don't ever want to go into your home equity. You really don't. You want to save that possibly for your retirement, because, you know, they have these reverse mortgages where, like, if you're old and you have nobody else to look out for you, it's like you can always tap into your equity and you can pay for your medical bills and your massages from masseuses and whatnot. But bottom line is, you don't want to tap into that. You want that to stay there in the house, and, you know, hopefully you never have to use it. The only people who really should be using that are people who have no next of kin and they're about to die and they just don't give a fuck. So they say, yeah, I'm going to do everything on my bucket list. I'm going to travel wherever I want in the world. I'm going to take a space flight with SpaceX, and I can pull $100,000 out of my house. And if I can't pay it back, who cares? Because I'm going to die anyway. It's like, whatever. Those are the only people who should be considering that. Anybody else, you really should not be looking at stuff like that, because most likely you're going to lose the property. It's going to go back to the bank, or it's going to go back to the government. So basically, that's all I really had to say. So there you go. There's some options for people trying to rebuild their credit. We got 2 secured credit cards. Apple Card, if you can get it, I would really recommend that to help you, because Apple Card is a program that helps you understand your spending on a monthly basis. And if you're smart, you would use it to set goals to reduce that spending. Stop going to goddamn Starbucks. And if you can reduce your spending, you can take that money and you can apply it to not only building your credit, but to purchasing more assets that pay you back, i.e. buying your house. So that's all I really had to say. And I think I'm done ranting for about now. So I'm going to finish drinking my juice right here. And then I'm going to head over to Manhattan for another day of debauchery.